She's posting smiles like nothing ever happened. But do those smiles really reach her eyes? She acts like she's moved on, but her mind, it's stuck in rewind, replaying moments she can't explain. If you've stayed silent, not to get attention, but because you've found your peace. You've already won a battle most men never realize exists. She tells herself it's over, posts pictures as if she's thriving, laughs like she never lost a second of sleep. But behind the filters and curated captions, her thoughts are far from free. Here's what no one tells you: when a woman has felt something real, something truly deep, she can't just erase it, not even if she desperately wants to. And if your silence is genuine, not passive-aggressive, not attention-seeking, but anchored in purpose, growth and self-mastery, then you've already done what most men can't. You've won without ever needing to fight. Let's unpack why she can't get you out of her head, no matter how hard she tries. 1. The facade of moving on. She's playing the role, laughing louder, posting more, chasing distractions. But these are just band-aids over a wound that hasn't healed. Because forgetting isn't healing, and moving fast doesn't mean letting go. She's not moving forward, she's running from a ghost. Yours. The louder the noise she creates, the sharper the memory of you cuts through the silence. Now maybe she's always out. Maybe there's a new guy in her feed. Maybe she's trying to prove something. To you, to her friends, to herself. But when the lights dim and the room is quiet, reality returns. Not the messy moments, the comforting ones. How you listened without interrupting. How you're calm, grounded. How you stayed steady when she spun out. That's where Stoicism becomes your weapon, not just against her behavior, but against your own impulses. You're not reaching out. You're not performing for validation. You're not bitter. You've simply made peace with what is, and that inner peace, it shakes her. She expected texts, calls, begging. Instead, you became the man who walked away, not because you didn't care, but because you cared more about your truth than chasing illusions. Now every forced smile, every flashy post, every good vibes only caption, armor that cracks every time a memory of your calm cuts through. It wasn't the grand gestures that left a mark, it was the depth. And that kind of depth, it lingers. We saw that it's not the drama or the noise that leaves a lasting mark. It's the depth, the calm, steady energy that can't be faked. Now, let's dive into what happens next when she's left alone with her thoughts. She can't bury your memory, because you weren't just another guy. You were an awakening. 2. The echoes in the quiet. When the night grows still, when the distractions fade, that's when you come back. Uninvited, unstoppable. She replays the last words, the final glance, the last moment she felt safe. Because silence isn't empty, it's revealing. It strips away the excuses, burns through the distractions, and in that clarity, the truth gets loud. It's not just your absence she hears, it's your essence. The steadiness you brought, the way you didn't flinch when she unraveled, the way you chose understanding over control. Now, in the hush of her mind, that echo only grows louder. She'll never admit it, but it's there, humming beneath everything, like a song she can't turn off. You're no longer just in her mind, you're etched into her nervous system. Your peace, your presence, your refusal to explode when others would have, those impressions go deeper than she ever imagined. From a Stoic lens, your silence isn't passive, it's powerful. You're not ignoring her, you're refusing to audition for a role you once filled with quiet strength. Epictetus said, "We suffer not from events, but from our judgment about them." And that's her battlefield now. She mistook your stillness for weakness until it held up a mirror to her own chaos. While you moved forward, not out of anger, but discipline, she chased distractions, desperate to recreate what she had with you. But no matter how many texts she leaves unread, or how many breadcrumbs she drops, your silence still speaks. And it says, "I'm no longer where you left me." That realization, that's the gut punch. Because when silence is used with purpose, it doesn't just create distance, it becomes a mirror. And now she's the one, staring into it. Pause, let that sink in. Your silence isn't emptiness, it's reflection, and in it, she doesn't just see what's missing, she sees what she lost. Not chaos, not attention, but unshakable presence, the kind of energy that doesn't shout but is always felt. That's what remains. That's the echo. If this landed even a little, drop a comment below. What part hit you hardest? Or just type, silence reveals everything. Because next up, we're about to explore how your absence has become her greatest teacher. You didn't just disappear, you left a void. And now that void echoes, it doesn't just remind her of you, it forces her to face who she was when she had you. Because absence isn't just empty space, it's a reflection. One that shows truths no words could ever explain. At first, she may have felt relief. She told herself distance was necessary, that letting go was for the best. But as time stretched, that space slowly transformed into something else, a quiet that unsettles her. Not because it screams your name, but because it whispers of the safety she once knew. You weren't just a partner, you were her anchor, not by controlling her emotions, but by remaining calm through them, not by solving all her problems, but by creating space where she could unravel and still feel accepted. Now, that sanctuary is gone, not slammed shut in rage, but closed with quiet resolve. What remains is reflection, not in late-night texts or closure conversations, but in the raw solitude of 3 a.m., and that's when it hits her. Your voice during tense moments, your patience when she spiraled, your silence not as a weapon, but as a shield for your peace. She's not just missing you, she's mourning the version of herself that felt safe when you were near. Because a man who values his peace doesn't beg to be heard, doesn't chase validation. He lets his absence teach what his presence once gave from a Stoic perspective. This is peak discipline. No reactions, no desperate outreach, no need to prove anything. You don't use silence, you embody it. Your absence isn't punishment, it's proof. As Seneca said, it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. And you stopped wasting time proving your worth to someone who overlooked it. That's your edge. And slowly, she begins to feel the difference between someone who filled her time and someone who touched her soul. For the echo of your composure, you didn't beg, you didn't break down, you stood still, calm, grounded, unshaken. In a world that mistakes chaos for passion, that kind of strength is rare. And what's rare is unforgettable. She might have been used to drama, to mood swings, to emotional gains disguised as romance, but you gave her none of that. You gave her stillness, a stillness so deep, it lingers long after the noise fades. Even at the end, you didn't chase, and that she can't unfeel. You didn't crumble, you didn't let your ego pull you into pointless battles. You simply let go. And that's what unsettles her the most. Not your anger, not just your silence, but the calm that sat beneath it all, unshakable, unbothered. That stillness, it whispers something she's just beginning to understand. This wasn't passivity. It wasn't indifference. It was the strength of a man who knows his worth and refuses to beg for crumbs. That kind of composure, it can't be manipulated. It won't respond to breadcrumbs. It doesn't crack under pressure. She expected you to break, to cave under silence, to come running like others did. But you didn't. You held the line. And that's why you're burned into her memory. She might replace the relationship, but she can't recreate the energy you carried, the calm you offered, the grounded presence, the emotional mastery she never truly understood. Until now, Stoicism teaches we are not disturbed by things but by the view we take of them. You lived this. You didn't let her actions define you. You responded with clarity, not chaos. And now, that stillness is the loudest voice in her world. Because once a woman has known a man who stands firm through emotional storms, holds his frame without flinching, chooses dignity over desperation, that memory doesn't fade. It becomes the standard, the ghost in every comparison, the measure for what came after. Because real power, it's not in the reaction, it's in restraint, and your restraint. That's the scar she can't outrun. The truth, anyone can react. Anyone can chase, beg, spiral under pressure. But to stay composed, to hold your frame when everything inside you wants to collapse, that's rare, Dot, and that kind of inner strength. It doesn't just leave a mark on her, it carves itself into you, Dot. It becomes who you are, a core part of your identity, Dot. So ask yourself, are you proud of how you handled the storm? Would you trade that composure for a moment of temporary validation? If this resonates, leave a comment, restraint is my power. Or just tell us what part hit you the hardest. Let's keep this message alive for every man learning to lead with quiet strength, not desperation. We talked about your calm, how it became the rare piece she didn't know she needed. Now, let's dive deeper into why that calmness wasn't just valuable, it was irreplaceable. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't try to fix her. When she broke down, you were just there, Dot, with a steady hand, a calm voice, and a gaze that never judged. You made her feel seen, truly seen, without needing to perform. Now that calm is gone, and its absence, it's deafening, Dot. At first, she didn't notice. She thought she needed something exciting, something new, Dot, but slowly, life began reminding her of just how rare you were, and how rare it is to feel safe emotionally with someone, without pretending. Then come the little things. The way you listened without turning talks into debates. The way your presence softened her storms. The way your patience made her feel understood, even when she didn't understand herself. A Stoic man doesn't try to be her thrill. He becomes her peace, Dot, and ironically, that peace gets overlooked until it's gone. Until new people in her life talk over her, minimize her emotions, make her feel like she has to earn their affection. That's when it hits. Her true safety can't be faked, and it can't be found just anywhere. You didn't need to dominate the room to make her feel secure. You did it with presence, the ability to hold tension without going cold, and your quiet strength that said, even if everything falls apart, I won't. That's not just attractive, it's unforgettable. Now, the contrast is sharp. She might be surrounded by attention. She might even feel wanted, but she can't find that same grounding, that emotional refuge she found with you. Because it was never about what you gave her. It was about what you didn't take. You didn't drain her. You didn't add chaos. You gave her space to feel, to break, to just be, and now that space, it's behind a door she can't unlock. Peace is underrated until it's gone. And once she's known what it's like to be with a man who lives by principles, not pressure, every messy connection that follows, it only reminds her of what she lost. You weren't just a chapter. You were the calm between storms. And once a woman has felt that, her mind won't let her forget. We explored how your calm became her contrast. Now, let's take it a step further and uncover why your silence became the loudest message you could ever send. You knew one truth: if someone couldn't value your presence, they didn't deserve the privilege of it, Dot, and often the strongest move is no move at all, Dot, because silence, when it comes from self-respect, is the loudest message you'll ever send, Dot. It's not silence begging for attention. It's the kind that forces reflection, Dot. She expected you to push back. She thought you'd match her emotional chaos, tit for tat, Dot, but instead, you chose something far more powerful. You disengaged. With calm, with dignity, with purpose. That kind of silence, it confuses people who rely on emotional control. Because you didn't give her the reaction she was used to. You didn't feed the cycle. You didn't validate the drama. You ended it. Not by slamming the door, but by simply stepping away from the doorway from a Stoic lens. This is true control. Not the kind that manipulates, but the kind that chooses peace over pettiness. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." And you lived it. You didn't retaliate. You didn't chase closure. You didn't lower yourself to be heard. You rose above, and that left a deeper impression than any dramatic goodbye ever could. Now, while others still play the same emotional chess game, she's left wondering, why didn't he fight for me? What she doesn't realize is that you did fight. For your peace, for your growth, for your dignity. And you won. You walked away not because you didn't care, but because you cared too much to betray yourself. And that kind of exit, unforgettable, because silence isn't emptiness, it's a declaration, one that echoes every time she looks at her phone and sees only quiet. Let that final thought settle. Sometimes the most profound statement isn't words. It's their absence. No text, no reaction, just the weight of you not being there. That's what leaves a mark. Not noise, but restraint. Not seeking validation, but standing in dignity. So, ask yourself, are you walking away for her? Or for you? If this resonates, drop a comment below or type, "My silence speaks for me." Let's keep this dialogue raw, rooted, and evolving. Now, on to what unfolds next. Because next, even her most ordinary triggers start bringing you back. When a man moves with purpose, with steadiness, with depth, when he offers peace in a world full of noise, he doesn't just pass through a woman's life, he carves himself into it. You didn't leave in flames. You didn't leave a mess behind. You left something far more powerful. Certainty. And now, anything that even slightly resembles your presence, a song, a shared joke, a memory tucked inside a scent, becomes a trigger, a ripple that reignites the contrast. She might be with someone new. She might look over it. But when he reacts where you stayed composed, when he interrupts where you once listened, that's when the comparisons awaken. And once they start, they don't stop. You didn't leave a wound. You left a benchmark. And that's harder to outrun. Scars can fade, but a standard, once set, reshapes every relationship that follows. It starts to filter every new connection, even when she tries not to let it. This is the ripple of emotional mastery. Your love wasn't chaotic. It was intentional. You gave her something she didn't even know she needed, safety. And once she's tasted that, that becomes a compass, the standard for what real should feel like, from a Stoic lens. This is the quiet strength of a man who rules himself. You didn't manipulate, you modeled. You didn't cling, you elevated. Now that essence trails her into new relationships, into quiet moments, into unguarded memories. She doesn't miss attention, she misses serenity. The way it grounded her, the way it cleared her mind, the way it made her feel more like herself. When someone feels truly seen and safe with you, forgetting isn't difficult. It's impossible. We explored how you became the standard she now measures others by. But what happens when her pride clashes with the truth buried deep in her heart? She might say she's fine. She might pretend you were never that important. But deep down, she knows you slipped through her fingers, silently, powerfully. And your strength, you didn't engage with her ego, you didn't scramble for understanding, you didn't chase closure. You stayed exactly as you were in the relationship, stoic, grounded, focused on the only thing you ever had control over, your growth. Epictetus said, if criticism is true, correct yourself. If it's false, ignore it. And you lived by that. You didn't defend yourself in her circles. You didn't rush to rewrite the story she told others. The truth doesn't need armor, only time. Noise fades, but truth, it endures. And one day, she'll see it. It was never just about what you did. It was about who you were, and more importantly, who you refused to become when things fell apart. You didn't turn bitter. You didn't retaliate. You became stronger. But here's the most important part. You no longer need her to see your worth, because you see it now. And that changes everything from a Stoic perspective. This is what real growth looks like. Seneca once said, "No, man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." And through your silence, your distance, you didn't just endure. You proved something to yourself. Yes, she remembers you. But now, she remembers someone who no longer belongs in her world. And that realization cuts deeper than any goodbye. Because you didn't just walk away from her, you walked away from the version of yourself who once needed her. As we wrap up today's reflection on emotional memory, On the quiet power that lingers long after the noise is gone, one truth becomes clear. The real challenge isn't clinging to the past. It's mastering yourself in the present. You've shown that. Composed silence, intentional absence, unshakable calm can leave an impression far deeper than words ever could. Through Stoic discipline, you've proven, not just but to yourself, that real power lies in release, not resistance. Sometimes the deepest mark you leave in someone's life isn't a dramatic goodbye, isn't a long final message. It's how you walked away, calmly, with peace, with purpose, with power. You didn't need to prove anything, because the loudest voice is not in what you say, but in how you carry yourself. You didn't chase, you didn't perform, you stayed grounded, and that spoke volumes. You didn't lose her, you outgrew who you were. You didn't just end a relationship, you stepped into a stronger version of yourself, and that is the real win. If this video resonated with you, drop a comment below. I choose peace, not attention. Or simply type silence as weight. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss videos on emotional mastery, self-worth, and Stoic wisdom. Thank you for watching, and always remember, the strongest voice is often the one that doesn't need to shout.